Mr. Heinz, a very kind elderly German who lived alone, got ready to welcome his beloved grandchildren and children into his home on Christmas Eve. To his surprise and sadness, all his efforts were completely disregarded by the family members to whom he dedicated so much love. The end of the year celebrations always present us with countless joys. A spirit of fraternity and affection seems to involve everyone. Gathering loved ones and family is the highlight of the year for many people, especially those with more experience. However, in today's report, we will explore the journey of Mr. Heinz, an almost octogenarian man, resident in the city of Munich, Germany. He didn't know it yet, but what would unfold at Christmas this year would permanently transform his relationship with his family. Mr. Heinz, an elderly retiree, distinguished himself during his life as a skilled mechanic, taking care of all types of cars. Even those who lived in other cities in Germany made a point of traveling long distances to entrust their cars to him, as he was highly recommended. After losing his wife, the elderly man experienced a long period of discouragement, finally choosing to retire from his profession as a mechanic. On the 22nd of December, 2016, a few days before Christmas, Mr. Heinz was at the main market in the region, acquiring all the necessary ingredients for an abundant and enchanting Christmas dinner. He also bought large fragrance candles to beautify the charming wooden table, along with decorated napkins and a new white tablecloth, his late wife's favorite color. And Mr. Heinz went further. He even bought a Santa Claus hat, planning to dress up for his grandchildren. At the grocery store checkout, he comes across Sebastian, his neighbor for more than 3 decades. The two talk about the relevance of that period of the year, when the whole family would gather around a table to enjoy the best food and drink, and share conversations about everything that happened during the year. It was time to miss the grandchildren, giving them treats and closely monitoring the children's development. Mr. Heinz and Sebastian smiled excitedly. Investing a good part of his retirement, Mr. Heinz didn't save money on purchases and had difficulty carrying his bags to the car. Due to his age, the elderly man could not carry weight. He asked for help from a store security guard who was near the entrance. Although very friendly, the security guard explains that unfortunately, he cannot leave his post on such a busy day. This forces the elderly person to make, with effort, 3 trips to the car, carrying heavy bags. Mr. Heinz, who rarely left the house, even in the unfriendly weather due to the snow that accumulated on the streets, also decided to visit a department store to buy gifts and Christmas cards for his grandchildren and children. The store was full. Customers almost ran over each other, rushing everywhere, grabbing gifts and taking advantage of the latest offers. In a tense moment, an argument almost broke out between 2 customers. Mr. Heinz, known for his calmness, never made much of the gift and was clearly uncomfortable. For a moment he thought about giving up and leaving the store, but then he reflected on the joy his grandchildren would feel in receiving something that reminded them of their caring, elderly grandfather. At some point, a friendly salesperson approaches, offering help. Mr. Heinz then says he needs gifts for 2 grandchildren and 2 children. The attentive salesperson asks about the profile of these people. Now excited, Mr. Heinz says that Marco, his firstborn, was a source of pride for him, having gained a place at one of Germany's best universities. Now, almost 35 years old, Marco was enjoying the taste of success as the owner of a promising construction company in Hamburg. Mr. Heinz was also the father of Elena, a daughter just 3 years younger than Marco, and who had already given him the great joy of 2 grandchildren. Elena also lived in Hamburg, and due to the distance between the 2 cities, visits were not as frequent. But all that didn't matter at that moment, because the day of the great Christmas dinner was approaching, and he would finally be reunited with his beloved family. The morning of December 24th finally arrives, and Mr. Heinz, very excited, gets out of bed without depending on the alarm clock. The snow outside and the presents placed under the Christmas tree make for a perfect scene. He looks for his late wife's old recipe book, kept on the old kitchen counter as a guide for preparing dinner. He organizes the ingredients, preheats the oven, and starts cutting the vegetables when the phone rings. After washing his hands, he answers the call. It was your daughter. She asks if he is okay. The elderly man replies that he is fine and couldn't wait for her arrival. At that moment, Elena becomes confused and interrupts him. She asks if Marco hadn't called the week before. Mr. Heinz informs her that no, but assures that he doesn't mind their delay, suggesting that they arrive after lunch without any problems. The most important moment for him is the long-awaited dinner. Elena suggests there is some misunderstanding. She and her brother are in Hamburg and will not be attending Christmas dinner with him. Elena planned to spend Christmas with her husband's family, who also lived in Hamburg. Marco, due to the opening of a shopping mall built by his company, would organize a grand dinner among his partners and closest family members, with his presence being extremely important. Mr. Heinz is silent for a few moments. Finally, Elena promises to make it up next year and asks him not to worry about the gift, as she would send it by mail. "You're going to love it," says the daughter enthusiastically. In the background, his grandchildren wish him a Merry Christmas. Mr. Heinz composes himself and states that there is no problem. He wishes Elena and his grandchildren a Merry Christmas. And finally, they say goodbye. Mr. Heinz looks at all the food laid out on the kitchen table until the sound of excited voices talking attracts his attention. Through the window, he sees Sebastian, his neighbor, welcoming and hugging his family. Sebastian notices Mr. Heinz at the window and waves with a smile, receiving a greeting from the elderly man, who slowly closes the curtain when the stove alarm goes off. That night, Mr. Heinz dines alone and feels the pain of his late wife's absence, a strong feeling he hasn't felt in years. Unfortunately, this scene repeats itself the following year, and then again and again, until, 4 years later, sad news shakes the family. Mr. Heinz is in a car accident. Due to a malfunction in one of the city's traffic lights, a speeding vehicle ignored the intersection and violently crashed into the elderly man's car. Sebastian, the only contact on the elderly man's emergency list, was alerted by the authorities, but unfortunately Mr. Heinz did not survive. Neighbor Sebastian is left with the difficult task of communicating the tragic news to his friend's children. Elena and Marco were stunned. They can't believe the sudden loss of their healthy father. Even with Sebastian's efforts, no words could bring comfort to his children. Since they both live in another city, the neighbor offers to help organize the funeral scheduled for the following day. At Elena and Marco's request, the wake would be a discreet ceremony, restricted to the family, and would take place at Mr. Heinz's own residence. That night was extremely difficult for Marco and Elena, who spent hours on the phone seeking comfort from each other. The next day, after a 3-hour journey on the road, the two found themselves in front of the old house where they had lived for many years, and it was impossible to hold back the tears. The brothers hugged each other and decided to postpone the discussion of bureaucratic and inventory issues for another time. At her children's request, Elena accompanied them to say goodbye to their grandfather. Hand in hand, they go up the stairs and enter the house. The environment still retained the warmth of times gone by, and memories of family gatherings seem to be permeated in every corner, revealed by photographs, old decorative objects, and even simple marks on the walls. With eyes full of tears, they go to the dining room and are confused by the scene they find. An impeccably set dining table was adorned with large scented candles, crystal glasses on a long white tablecloth, and all the crockery sparkled as if it were new. Suddenly, the stove alarm goes off, and, as if by magic, Mr. Heinz appears, bringing with him a beautiful Christmas turkey and placing it carefully on the beautiful table. "How else would I be able to bring us all together again? Isn't that true?" he asks, drawing a small smile on his lips. Marco, Elena, and their children are incredulous at what they see. The children and grandchildren rush towards the elderly man, wrapping Mr. Heinz in a strong hug, a hug that has been renewed every year since then. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like on the video and tell us in the comments what you thought of Mr. Heinz's attitude. The video that is being displayed on the screen right now can equally move you. Click on it now. I wish you a wonderful Christmas celebration and see you in the next video.